Hey, welcome back to my own The Shoulders of Giants YouTube channel. Once again, I am Joseph Ward, the founder, author, and creator of On the Shoulders of Giants, where we give you the stories of the sung and unsung heroes, African history at your fingertips. And you can make sure you visit my website at www.ontheshoulders1.com for as much information as possible to learn about On the Shoulders of Giants and where we started, why we do what we do, and what we plan on doing in the future. Um, Remember, you can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/OTSOG, where you can get books, you can get online courses, you can get a lot of information. You'll be the first one to get videos. You'll be the first one to know about different things happening. And, just pure support for On the Shoulders of Giants. So remember, patreon.com/OTSOG. And I do want to shout out my patrons. I want to shout out Professor Carl Tone Jones, Miss Cheryl Williams, my homeboy Patrick Irvin. I appreciate you. F. Dot, and I hope I say this right, Sija or Siga, but I appreciate you all for becoming patrons, and just thank you very much, because you all help this channel grow. You help contribute to the movement, which is On the Shoulders of Giants, so we can continue to give our information out to our people. So got a real good one today. Very, very, very excited about this one. We have a griot in the building, and I know we were using that word the other day, Baba and I, before we in our little test run, and we'll get into more of what a griot is if you don't know. But this gentleman is definitely a staple in my community in Tallahassee, Florida, but he's a staple in the Black community. He is a musician. He's a storyteller. He's a historian. He's done the work. He's gathered stories from all around. And today he's going to bless us with teaching us what Kujichagulia mentality is. It's going to give us the foundation of and the history of oral tradition. And he has a lot of great stories and folklore to give us. And without further ado, I want to welcome Baba Olusegun Williams. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, man. This is definitely an honor and a privilege and a blessing. I'm a big fan of yours. And,
I appreciate it.
I really like what I see. Some of the people who were, a couple of generations under me, some of the work they put in. And you were among my smiling faces. Absolutely.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and start the conversation.
Let's do it. Let's get into it.
Kujichagulia Mentality, subtitled The Struggle for Self-Determination in the African Diaspora. Kujichagulia is the second principle of Kwanzaa, and it's a Swahili word. And, people define it in a lot of ways, with philosophical definitions, but self-determination is really a concept that's based on nation, it's based on land, it's based on a ethnic group or any group of people saying that they're going to handle their own business.
Right.
We're gonna provide for ourselves, and prior to the slave trade, that's what we were doing as African people. We were maintaining ourselves in our own communities, where we wasn't thinking about no outside influences. We're just doing what we do.
Right.
We've lost a lot of that to a certain extent, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's included in the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Right?
Yes, sir.
Because that's a roadmap for how to develop a community. If you apply those 7 principles to your daily life, things could be happening. Now,
right.
If we go back historically before integration, right? We had infrastructure in our own communities.
Yeah, we did.
When I was growing up in Atlanta, walking distance from my house was 2 restaurants, a drugstore, gas station, a hotel, 2 nightclubs. You know what I'm saying? This is all in the neighborhood the Atlanta University Center. You know, those 5 historically black colleges up there. This is in that overall community, right? Thriving neighborhood. 2 movie theaters within walking distance of my house. 2.
Okay.
When the Civil Rights Act was passed, and keep in mind I said Civil Rights Act. Right? Act is not a law. It's not a law. An act has to be renewed on a periodic basis, and that's something that Congress has, right? So, you know, we were looking for a law to end Jim Crow, and we wound up with an act that's renewable upon the desire of people who don't work at our best interest.
Right.
So is, you know, on some level, it's like a separatist philosophy. Right? Now, I've been digging around about runaway slave communities, and everywhere I look, I find them. You know, I had the privilege of actually visiting one in Jamaica, a place called Accompong. And what I notice about these places is that they are often in, well, not even often, always in places that are inaccessible. You know, mountain somewhere, they're in some, you know, swamp, some prehistoric looking Jurassic Park kind of terrain or something, places that are not easy to get to. You know, and that was the attempt of the runaways who formed these communities to establish an existence on their own without any bother. If you look at the Great Dismal Swamp, which borders South Carolina and North Carolina, so it's near Norfolk, and actually the swamp itself is larger than the footprint of the city of Norfolk.
Wow.
There's an island in the middle of that swamp, and it is very difficult to get to the interior of that island. It's almost like, you know, swampy, almost quicksand type of terrain, you know, very treacherous, very thick brush. And archaeologists have found at the center of the island there's like a clearing, and found evidence of somebody living there. You know? So these are people who made a run for it, right? The first story I want to get into is the people who could fly. Now, everybody's probably heard of Ebo Landing in the Sea Island in Georgia. If not, I'll go over it a little bit. A group of slaves.
No, I haven't heard of that.
You have not heard of Ebo Landing? Is that what you said?
No, sir.
Oh my God. Okay. Let me bring you up to date.
Okay.
The year escapes me right now, but the legend says that there was a group of Igbo people from Nigeria who were captured in slavery, and they were taken to Sea Islands off the coast of Georgia. And so, as a matter of fact, they went to a place called Dunbar Creek on St. Simon's Island. And it was said that they were hoodwinked into getting on the slave ship to come over here. They were told they were coming over here to work. Well, that was, you know, so to speak, but they didn't know they were going to be enslaved. You know. So, they all got together, and when they stepped off that boat, they turned right around and walked back into the ocean. The spiritual song "Oh Freedom," "Oh Freedom Over Me," right? Oh freedom, right? Oh freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my home. Right? So this legend of these people walking back into the water is followed by a second legend of people who could actually fly. And I have a recording that was done by the band I used to play at Phoenix Uprising back in '94. we did a recording of people who got stories. So it's got sound effects and music and this and that. So it's something you don't have. You can close your eyes because it's more. I used to work in radio, so it's more like a radio play. But here it goes. Let's see if it works.
All right.
Here it goes.
I remember some Babylon, and down, and there we went when we remember Zion. It happened long, long ago, when black people were taken from their homes in Africa and forced to come here to work as slaves. They were put into ships and many died during the long voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. They stepped off the boats onto a land they had never seen, a land they never knew existed, and they were put into the fields to work. Many refused and they were killed. Some would run away and try to go back home, back to Africa where there were no slave masters, where they worked their own land for the good of each other, not for the good of the slave masters. Some of those who tried to go back to Africa would walk until they came to the ocean, and they would walk into the water. No one knew if they went back to Africa or if they drowned. It didn't matter. At least they were no longer slaves. When the slave traders forced Africans onto the slave ships, they did not know nor did they care whether they took the village artists, musicians, or priests. As long as they were black and living on the slaves wanted them, men, women, and children. The slave traders did not know that sometimes there would be a witch doctor among those captured. If they had known, and had also known that the witch doctor was the medium of the gods, they would have thought twice. It was to a plantation in South Carolina that one boatload of Africans was brought. Among them was the son of a priest who had recently completed studying the secrets of the gods taught by his father. This young man carried with him the secrets and powers of the generations of Africa. One day, one hot day when the sun burnt the hair on top of the head, they were working in the fields. They had been in the field since before the sun rose, and as it did its journey to the highest part of the sky, the very air seemed to be on fire. A young woman, her body covered with the child fainted. Before her body struck the ground, the overseer with the whip was riding toward her on his horse. He threw water in her face. Get back to work, you lazy nigger. There ain't gonna be no sitting down on the job as long as I'm here. He cracked the whip against her back, and screaming, she staggered to her feet. All work stopped as the Africans watched. If you niggas don't want a taste of the same, you better get back to work. The Africans lowered their heads and went back to work. The young priest worked his way slowly toward the young mother and whispered something in her ear. She in turn to the person beside her. He told the next person. She told another person, and on around the field it went. The Africans did it so quickly and quietly that the overseer noticed nothing. A few moments later, the young woman fainted once again. The overseer with the whip was almost upon her when the young priest shouted, "Now!" And he uttered a strange word. "Kujichagulia!" The young woman rose from the ground and waving her arms like wings into the sky. The overseer looked around at the Africans and shouted, "Who did that? Who yelled out? Just let me get my hands on it." The Africans only stared into the distance. A tiny smile softened their lips. "Now," the priest shouted, "now, everyone!" He uttered the strange word, "Kujichagulia!" All the Africans dropped their holds, stretched out their arms, and flew away back to Africa. That was long ago, and no one now knows the word the witch doctor knew that could make people fly. But who knows? Maybe one day one of you will awaken with a strange word on your lips, and uttering it, all of Africa's children will fly away.
That's it.
I like that. Yeah, that's like that was real good. Now, and what's interesting about that is I was talking to a friend earlier, and we were having a conversation about. He was telling me about a group of people he met who do dramatic. They read books for people, and they do the voices, but they do it in dramatic, like they're a drama club, and they do audio books. And I'm listening to this, and I'm just like you said, you can close your eyes because he gets real vivid with it, but just the emotion in it and everything that comes from it, like you can just feel that. So I like that.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna talk a little bit about resistance strategies, right? Because
Okay.
all these slave communities, I'm finding they are everywhere in the Caribbean, South America, Peru, Colombia. I mean, all over the place. You know,
Right.
just dozens of them. You know,
They are.
been doing some research on slavery between 1800 and the Civil War, and I'm running into all kinds of most of them fail because of somebody, you know, telling. I'm gonna do a little song about Gabriel Prosser in a little while, whose rebellion was put down. It never even got off the ground, but he was executed along with about 1,000 people. But somebody wrote a song that imagines that he escaped with the aid of a teenage boy, right? So I'll do that later. But in terms of resistance strategies, we use everything imaginable. Cunning, you know, like outsmarting math, you know, just outright deceit, lying to him, you know, escape, poisoning. There's a play written by a guy named Douglas Turner Ward. He's one of the founders of the Negro Ensemble Theater Company in New York back in the 60s.
Okay.
He wrote a play called Contribution, and it's about this young man who wants to go to a street demonstration, and his grandmother she's worried about it, right? But she tells him, "Okay, honey, you know, so on your way to the demonstration, would you please take this pecan pie by the sheriff's office?" So he takes the pie to the sheriff's office and goes to the demonstration, right? So in the middle of the demonstration, the police are there, and somebody comes around and says, "The sheriff is dead." Grandma had poisoned the pie, so that was her contribution.
Right.
If you go to Jamaica, they talk about ackee. Ackee is a poison plant.
Okay.
Unless you know when it's not poisonous, right? So I can see cases where, you know, some nanny or somebody's cooking in the kitchen, cooking ackee, might eat some of it herself, you know, to keep the master from catching on. But she's cooking, she got her little batch over here that's, you know, that's not poison anymore. That's over here that is still poisonous. And, you know, you got guerrilla war. Guerrilla war. The Maroons in Jamaica, that's what they started out as.
Yes, they did.
Attacks and this and that and the other. People like Queen Nanny of the Maroons. I went to Accompong, which is what they call the leeward side of Jamaica. The wind comes from the east, so this is more toward the western side of the island, in St. Elizabeth Parish. Who is it? Catherine Dunham, the dancer, is known for having gone there and written about it. She wrote a book called Journey to Accompong. So I actually met people who knew Catherine Dunham, you know, with some elders there. But this place is up in the mountains, and it's on the edge of a part of the country they call cockpit country. Cockpit country looks like Jurassic Park. I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, you could die in there easy, no problem. Like if you look at a topographical map of Jamaica, when you look at that area called the cockpit country, there's no detail. It's just blank. It has an inscription that says, "Nino send, you no come." In other words, I don't send for you. Don't even bring your behind out.
Right.
So in 1739, the Maroons signed a treaty with the British to stop the hostilities. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they were among the first to not lose. Right. They didn't outright win. They fought to a stalemate, and they established these maroon towns around the islands, kind of like Indian reservations. Right.
Right.
And one of the provisions of the treaty was that each maroon town would have to have at least one white person living among them. See, now that's trying to put you into just the opposite of what Kujichagulia means, right?
Exactly. Sound like control.
Tanzania, who told me what that word is in Swahili, is Kujichagulia. The Kujichagulia and Kujichagulia. That's exactly the opposite of Kujichagulia. Rather than self-determination, you let somebody else determine for you.
Right.
I used to work I used to be a DJ in Miami, working at I'll call it something you know it, WEDR 99.1 FM.
Mm-hmm.
The EDR stands for Ed Rivers, who was somehow related to Governor Rivers, who used to be the governor of Georgia. Right, his family got a couple of radio stations, and all black people working at the station. Right. So programs to the black community. Mm-hmm. The receptionist was a white woman, right? And what is the receptionist? She's a gatekeeper. You walk into a business, right. First, she is a receptionist. She asks you what's your business, and then she tells you where to go, right? So this is the first person you encounter when you enter into the station, right? Come to find out, she's on the board of directors of the corporation that owns the station. So that means all the information is being filtered through her before you get to anybody past her that it was intended for. You know?
That's crazy.
Exactly. But that's the same concept. You gotta have a white person, right?
Right.
We can talk about in Cuba when not long after Columbus showed up. I think this has something to do with Columbus' brother or somebody, but yeah, the legend of Hathaway. Sometime when you shop and you go down to where the specialty drinks are, they have a malt liquid called Hathaway. Got the face of a indigenous American, a Taino.
Yeah.
Right. Well, there's a story behind this guy. There's a story behind this guy.
Yeah, I did one on him. I did a story on Hathaway. Yes, sir.
Did you do what he told the priest before they burned him?
Yes. He was like, if basically, and I'm paraphrasing, if people like you are in heaven, then let me go to hell. Basically.
Right. Basically, that's what he said. Right. I think the priest said they had him tied to the stake already. Right. He's standing there. He's getting ready to set him on fire. He got the wood and stuff all piled up, and the priest walks up and says, "Well, wouldn't you like to, be baptized and, accept Jesus and all that and go to heaven?" And he said, "Well, are there any people like you in heaven?" He said, "Yes, of course. The good one.
Right.
People like you up there. They ain't trying to go that way." Yeah.
And that's real.
Well, we made short order of that.
Yes, sir.
Talking about Igbo landing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, just real quick, and when you're talking about those maroon colonies, I learned about a couple doing my research. Just recently, I did a video and a blog post on San Basilio de Palenque in Colombia, and I learned about. We talked about Samuel Sharp. Also, another one come to mind, Gaspar Yanga in Mexico, who I think the town is called Yanga, and for the young people who think that Black people never fought back. I'm glad you're telling these stories and talking about the resistances and talking about the importance of self-determination, because we have a group of our young people who really believe that our ancestors just laid down and allowed the oppression to happen. They don't really understand the continuous fighting back that has happened and is still happening to this day.
Right. That's part of my mission in life is to get this information out. It doesn't do anybody any good if I keep it inside my head and don't share it. Right.
Right.
Quilombo, which is what we played in Brazil, Quilombos, right?
Mm-hmm.
The most famous one was called Palmares. There's been a movie made about it.
Yes. Yes.
I have a copy of the movie, right? But I was in Brazil in, when was that? 2007, I think. And I went to this mall and went to this bookstore. Found a book in Portuguese called Africanos Himnos. Africa is in them, right? It had now when I was in here, I'm looking at a map and I see that there's this town called Palmares, which was the name of this Colombo, about 200 miles north of where I was. Right? I was trying to arrange a trip up there, but I couldn't do it. But then when I bought this book, I looked up Palmares. Palmares, first of all, it lasted about 100 years.
Yes.
So from its establishment, it went on for almost 100 years, maybe a little more than 100. And it was, I had never heard that. I thought it was just like a little community, like a lot of these other ones, a little village somewhere.
Yeah, it was pretty large. It was pretty large.
Like Texas, man. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, everybody wasn't singing, we should, soon I will be done, or we shall overcome. There were people who were willing to engage in armed resistance. Nat Turner.
Right.
You ever heard of something called Hush Arbor?
Say that again?
Hush Arbor.
No.
Hush, like be quiet. Arbor.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one. Okay.
You heard of an arboretum? An arboretum is a place where you cultivate trees, right?
Right.
So the arbor is a group for forests. In Haiti, the place where the revolution started was called Bois Caiman. The Bois part is related to the arbors, is alligator forest, right? So the arbor is a place where the slaves were allowed to congregate to have meetings or church services or whatever. And when they were going to be planning, say, a revolt or an escape, they would take quilts with them out to the Hush Arbor. It was a ways away from the big house. They would take quilts out there and hang them up in the bushes and trees around the meeting place so the town couldn't get out and get back to the big house. Right. And so that those were the incubators for a lot of revolutionary plans. The Haitian Revolution. A lot of people think Toussaint Louverture was the instigator of the revolution.
No.
He was late in the game. He was recruited by somebody else who was already in it. The three leaders of the Haitian Revolution are a guy who had been a slave in Jamaica. His name was next guy was Jean Francois. The third guy was George Biassou. My research is said that Biassou is the one who recruited Toussaint into the fray.
Okay.
And that was after they was already at it. So now that doesn't mean Toussaint wasn't a hero of it, but he was
critical.
He's in there, right? Somebody in Haiti over there, they said Toussaint was not Haitian. I said, what? I said, when he born here? He said, yeah. He said, but we died before the revolution was over, before we started calling it Haiti. So he wasn't Haitian. Oh, he cracked me up.
Yeah, okay. Now, also, when you talk about those Quilombos, in my second book, I wrote about Zumbi and Dedara. and how they
Yeah.
helped to contribute to the Quilombo being built, and just the total resistance. And I think that's a story that need to be told too, because you're talking about a man and a woman. Like Zumbi was a fierce warrior, but Dendara was just as fierce as Zumbi, and both of them out there kicking butt and fighting for their freedom, and gained their true freedom and living in the Quilombo. So yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, them people. Yeah. So not Denmark. Let's talk about Denmark Vesey. Denmark Vesey lived in Charleston, South Carolina, and he was a freeman. He was a freeman.
Mm-hmm.
But that church. What's that church where that guy killed all those people in Charleston?
I can't remember the name of the church, but the one with the white guy.
Yeah, that church. That church. That church had I think that's the church. They had a carving or something, some type of depiction on the wall of Denmark Vesey. That thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he was going to try to escape to Haiti and ask for political asylum. You know, I saw his house in Charleston. I took pictures of it. It's not even got a marker. I found out, went there and saw a bicycle on the porch. You know, somebody's renting it out. No numbers at all. My man Biasu, one of the three that started the Haitian Revolution, was a general who commanded somewhere like 40,000 troops. And a lot of people don't know that the big three naval powers got involved in that war. And France, and Spain, and England as well. That the Haitians defeated. They kicked everybody's behind, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. In the comments, thank you for putting in the comments. It's Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church. That's the name of the church in Charleston.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for that comment.
I have senior moments, man. It's hard. But anyway, Biasu had sided with the Spanish. He was fighting for the Spanish. He was George Biasu when he was with the French. He changed it to Jorge Biasu.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Spanish pulled out, they didn't know what to do with this man, so they tried to exile him. They wanted to send him to Cuba. So they put him on a boat to Cuba. He gets to Cuba, and the Cubans won't let him off the boat. So he winds up in St. Augustine. He was at one time considered to be the second highest official in Spanish Florida, second only to the governor. And he commanded a little tiny fort that's about 15 miles south of St. Augustine on the inlet to the Matanzas River. It's called Fort Matanzas. The footprint of that fort is not much larger than my house. It's a tiny little fort. It's got one cannon. I think only 5 soldiers were standing there. Biasu would have made 6, but Biasu was the commander of that fort, right? And it was there to protect that fort in St. Augustine from the French and the British, because they could sneak up the Matanzas River. Only thing was the Matanzas River was very shallow, so they couldn't bring a big ship. They would have to come up in a canoe or a rowboat. And you don't need a massive fort to fight off a rowboat. You know, you need a cannon and some rifles to take care of that. So, you know, that's why it's there. But Biasu lived as a free man, and I'm talking, well, he died in 1801 in St. Augustine. He's buried there. I've been trying to track him, and I took out a life membership in the association that takes care of the cemetery that he's in. There's some technical issues that keep us from identifying which grave is his. It's a very small cemetery that there's ground penetrating radar. He showed that there are graves on top of other graves, and you know, a lot of markers of the way or whatnot. So that's going to be a blessing if we ever actually find him, but we know he's in there.
Right.
But you know, the Haitian Revolution set off a chain of events that is still in progress.
Yes.
To this, the only way the United States was able to expand past the Mississippi River is because the Haitians were kicking the French people's ass, and
Right.
You know, Napoleon decided to give up the whole Louisiana territory.
Right.
It was double the area of the present United States, right?
Yeah.
What else happened? I mean, it's just a chain of events, you know.
Because that also made Rothschild. That move made some of the Rothschilds rich through deception through stocks and like whatever exchange system that they had at the time. I think the value of the land and things went down, or he was telling people that Napoleon was winning and Napoleon was actually losing, and the value went down, and he was able to purchase things, and the value went up, and it made him rich. So yeah, it set off a lot of chain of events that helped the Western world, but also it inspired a lot of slaves or enslaved Africans around the Caribbean. It inspired them to fight back, and the slave masters was like, well, no, we can't have this happening. So that's when they started more aggressive tactics to oppress them. But it reminded Black people throughout the diaspora in the Caribbean and in South America and North America that we can be free, and people started fighting back even more.
Oh yeah, think about it. Haiti declared independence January 1, 1804. How many countries in this hemisphere had declared independence before that? Think about it. Just one. Just one. No, just one.
Okay.
What country was it? What country was it? 76.
Okay. I'm sorry. Say it again. Say it again. It was breaking up a bit.
Okay. Prior to Haiti declaring their independence on January 1st, 1804, there was only one other country in the Western Hemisphere that was independent of this colonial connection.
Okay, let me write this down.
My question is, what country was it?
I don't know.
The year 1776. What happened in 1776?
Well, we know America. Oh yeah. Okay.
American Revolution. Right.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So
it makes sense. I got you.
There's
okay,
only
I'm
two
with you
free
now.
countries
Okay.
from this side of the Atlantic, right? Two free countries from this side of the Atlantic. One's white, one's black.
Right.
Right. The other free country, as well as all of the neighbors, everybody else surrounding them, was still slave-holding countries.
Okay.
So,
right.
so the foot was put on the knee was put on the neck of Haiti. The knee was put on the neck of Haiti. I had a book, Haitian Revolution. They didn't want the idea of immigration to leave this island. They didn't want it to get out because what you were just talking about is going to incite.
Right.
Cause some other stuff to be going down. So that's why the foot is still on Haiti to this day.
Right.
To this day. I have a document written by John Brown Russell. He wrote a letter in just a few years after the Haitian Revolution.
I'm sorry. Can you say the name again? It was breaking up when you were saying the name.
Yeah. John Brown Russell. RUSWURM. John Brown Russell. Right. He actually gave a speech. He gave his graduation speech. He graduated from college. And the title of the speech was "The Condition and Prospects of Haiti."
Okay.
In the speech, he talks about the fact that Haiti has a great promise to be one of the leaders, be one of the leading countries in the world. Right. This is just a few years, like 1810, something like that. When he's writing this.
Okay.
And you know, in other words, he was expressing that Haiti had such great promise. Now, Haiti helped liberate Bolivia, South America. They helped the United States win the War of 1812. There was a battle fought in Savannah, Georgia, and Haitian troops helped the Americans defend Savannah against the British troops. Right? I think one year, one of the brothers who was in the Florida legislature issued a proclamation in commemoration of that event. So there's something in the state papers of Florida showing that recognition was given to the Haitians who fought in Savannah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, here's a story. This is true. This story right here is true. I came across this down in Wakulla County in Crawfordville. This was inside of a church program that somebody showed me.
Okay.
All right. And it says it's a little known but significant local Black history event. And it's about a man named Sandy Cornish.
Okay.
1793 to 1869. He was an African-American farmer, business person, and civic leader in Key West, Florida. As a former slave who had purchased his freedom, he publicly maimed himself to prevent being returned to slavery. This man cut his own hand off. You know,
right.
Being to slavery. You have other than see all the time we talk about resistance, right? Comes in many forms. That's a
right.
form
Yeah,
of
it does.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah. The other day we talked about the movie Beloved.
Yes.
From the book Toni Morrison.
Yes.
Celia murdered her infant child. That spirit came back to haunt her. The spirit of the baby that she killed. It just turned into a young woman, right? But you know, like to even have a thought of doing something like that, the situation has to be so desperate, you know.
Yes.
You got to be at your wit's end and see no light at the end of any kind of tunnel.
If that's the path, right?
Yeah. You know, if certain things have happened to you, you've been beaten, scarred, raped, and all of this. You know, you don't want this to happen to your offspring. So, you know, in a funny kind of way, it's worse, you know. But that's from Toni Morrison's book. But on the campus of Florida State, they say there's a ghost.
Yes.
Up by the fountain by Westcott, right? They say there's a ghost up there. There was a young lady who was here studying dance. Her name was Love. And she found out about this, where the fountain is. It used to be gallows. FSU hadn't been founded yet. And there used to be a gallows on that hill, and that's where they executed people. And there's this story of Gallows Hill. The story of Gallows Hill was constructed in 1829 as a place to hang Tallahassee's most unsavory criminals. About where the first and most famous execution at Gallows Hill was of a mother convicted of killing her own child. Over the years, students have reported feeling chills and hearing strange sounds while traversing the Westcott Fountain at night.
Right.
Yeah. So that's this sister who was studying dance did part of her degree requirements and her performance around that site.
Right. You know what's I just thought about that because I remember the first time I heard a mention of that, because I've walked through that area before, And I remember I had a friend at a radio who worked in the radio station right down Florida State campus, and you have to walk through the gallows to get to that building. And
the disc ball building.
yes,
You talking about
yes,
89?
yes, yes.
I used to be the manager.
Okay, okay. But see, walking through there, when I was walking through there, and I didn't know if I was like fabricating this or whatever, but I kind of you feel something when you're walking through that. Well, at least I did. At least I felt something walking through there, and even walking through there at night. And I'm not gonna say like I felt the chills or I heard voices, but it's almost like I felt some type of energy walking through there. So yeah, I believe you on that. Yes, sir. Because I walked through there myself.
Yeah, it's based on an actual historical event. Gabriel Prosser is a real life African American folk hero. He was born in 1775. He was a coachman belonging to Thomas Prosser of Henrico County, Virginia. The revolt which Gabriel organized, had it succeeded, may well have changed the history of America. In the area around Richmond, Virginia, chosen as the site of the rebellion, slaves outnumbered whites by 41, 32,000 to 8,000. Gabriel hoped that once the rebellion started, Virginia's remaining 300,000 slaves would follow his lead and capture the entire state. The severe rainstorm made it impossible for most of his followers to assemble at the appointed rendezvous, the old brook swamp outside of Richmond. Before they reassembled, Prosser was betrayed by 2 slaves. Most of those implicated, some 1,000 people, were rounded up and hanged. Gabriel Prosser himself was captured in the hold of the schooner when it docked at Norfolk after a trip from Richmond. Brought back to Richmond in chains, Gabriel refused to divulge any information on the nature of his plans or the identities of his compatriots. On October 7, 1800, at age 24, Gabriel was hanged. Legends about Gabriel found their way into the people's musical lore. In the narrative, I have a narrative ballad that I'm going to do with that. It is claimed that Gabriel was not hanged at all, but was arrested by TV state on his ability. But before I do that, I want to talk about what's called the Negro Fort.
Yes.
Which is about 60 miles from Tallahassee.
Right.
Brother, what's the guy's name? There's a professor
Andrew Jackson. Okay. Is that Swanee County, right?
Say again.
Is that in Swanee County?
Say that again.
Is that in Swanee County? I'm trying to think.
I don't think that's. You go west on 20, State Road 20, Pensacola Street. Right.
Okay.
Go west to Hosford, and you turn left on Florida 67. And about just miles after you pass a town called Sumatra.
Right.
There's a road, a dirt road called Brickyard Road. You turn down Brickyard Road, and I think there's a signage that will take you to the fort. It's on the banks of the Apalachicola River. Now, this fort was built by the British, and they abandoned it in 1840. But they left some guns and some gunpowder, ammunition, locked in a shed that was in the interior of the fort, behind the walls, right?
Right. I think we might have lost him. I don't know. He's breaking up a bit. Let me see what's happening because he's getting into Fort Negro. I don't know if he can hear me, but we'll give him a chance to see what happened with that. But if you Negro Fort or Fort Negro, and it's in North Florida, and it was raided by Andrew Jackson. But we're gonna having a little bit of technical difficulty. Yes, I can hear you now.
You still hear me?
Yes.
My picture's on, but if you can hear me, I'll keep going.
Yes, I can hear you.
So these British, okay. So the British abandoned the fort in 1814, and some runaway slaves from the Carolinas and Georgia and some indigenous Americans from this area took up housekeeping inside that fort, right? And the plantation owners in Georgia and South Carolina began to complain to the government about wanting to go into Florida, into Spanish Florida, and recapture the runaway slaves. The only thing stopping it is that that's unconstitutional. There's a provision in the U.S. Constitution that prohibits the individual state from having any negotiation or diplomacy like that with a foreign country. That the federal government has to do that. States can't do that, right? So Andrew Jackson started to write letters to the president about the possibility of going down there and staging a raid to capture these runaway slaves.
Right.
He was granted permission somewhere around here. I have a copy of the letters that he was writing. But he was granted permission, and he took a steamship down Apalachicola River, fort right on the bank of the river. He took the steamship down the river and fire on the fort with cannons from the steamship.
We lost them. Oh, hold on. Hold on.
And Jackson put to make them red hot.
Hold on, but I'm sorry. You it dropped you out a little bit, then it just brought you back in the middle of the conversation. So could you back it up just a bit? I don't. Yeah. You were just talking about the steamship using the cannons on the fort.
Right. And Jackson took cannonballs and heated them in fire in the furnace on the ship and shoot them at the fort. Now, I would think that, the people in the fort may have gotten some intelligence that this was getting ready to happen.
Right.
So they took the women and children and they put them inside that shed where the gunpowder and the guns were, right? Thinking they would be safe while they fought off the intruders, trying to come through the gates and climb the walls and all that. They thought, the women and children would be safe locked inside that building. But one of those red hot cannonballs hit that building. The building exploded. Like I said, they had about 10,000 pounds of gunpowder in them, and they just exploded. The park ranger down there told me that they found body parts in the trees.
Wow.
He said they did not have enough that was recognizable to even reconstruct a single human being. They couldn't recognize the pieces, so they couldn't put anything back together, right? So they gathered up what they could and they buried it on the grounds. Took me to the burial ground. I could see the depression in the dirt, right? And that's he was like, he says, if you dig that up, you won't find anything. I said, really? No bones, no teeth, no hair? No, he said nothing. He said there's something in the soil that consumes everything. And that's why the soil had salt, because it consumed everything. So the pressure wave, right? And I took a step into that area. And brother, man, you talk about feeling something when you went by Westcott Fountain. Something grabbed me by the throat. And those ancestral spirits told me that if you ever have a chance to address a group of people, regardless of what the topic is, you have to talk about us.
Yeah.
You got to figure out a way to talk about us, because people need to know what happened to us. That is the most horrendous thing I can imagine. And then and what really kind of ticked me off is they want to put Harriet Tubman's picture on the same bill of currency that Andrew Jackson's faces.
Yeah,
why you want to insult Harriet Tubman like that?
Right.
I I don't mind replacing them. It doesn't make me kind of want to have a $20 bill in my pocket sometimes. But you know, I heard the Americans, they don't negotiate as soon as they get a $20 bill, they turn it into something else. You know, I tend to do that too. I don't really have them in my pocket. You carry them around. I got Haitian money in my pocket. I got black dead presidents.
Right.
So anyway, back to Gabriel Prosper.
Okay.
So it's a little song. I'm gonna see if I can play it and sing it at the same time. Let's see.
Okay.
Okay. So this is about Gabriel actually getting away, right? This little guy named Billy came in and had stage him, whereas in actuality he was actually executed by himself. There was two of Gabriel and two gods in the jail, and two were standing by the hangman's tree, but Billy was there to get Gabriel out. Billy was chained and Billy was sold and Billy was sold and was in his way. Until we go to Gabriel's door, and he was that too, I can't believe. There was musket shot and musket ball betwixt his neck bone and his knee. But Billy took Gabriel up in his arms, and he carried him away right manfully. They mounted a horse and away they went. 10 miles out from that hanging tree. On 12 they stopped at the river bend, and he rested right there, right happily. And then they called for victory dance, and the people all danced merrily. And the best dancer amongst them all was Gabriel Prosper, who had just got free. So they had a party. They actually got down. Yeah, they had a party.
Could you do me a favor? I'm sorry. Could you tell the audience what instrument you were just playing?
I'm playing it's called kalimba. It's in a family of instruments known as mbira, M-B-I-R-A. This particular one comes from South Carolina, South Africa. This one was made in South Carolina, South Africa. The more traditional ones are tuned to some pentatonic scale, 5-note scale, or something like that. But mine's tuned just like a piano. So I got all the sharps and flats, and all the notes on the piano. So well, I'm gonna tell you a story from my own life.
Okay.
My dad was a civil rights activist in Atlanta, and you could compare him to C.K. Steele in Tallahassee. Right?
Okay. Wow. Right.
He was on the board of SCLC and so forth. He after Dr. King's death, a year after Dr. King's, well, no, it was 2 years. It was 2 years and 2 days. In April of 1970, Time Magazine did an article on where the movement was going and so forth after the death of Dr. King, and it was available with my dad there. But when I was young, When I was 8 years old, my father bought me a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't buy me that gun for, shooting up the neighborhood or, doing a drive-by or something. This is more in the realm of defending the house and defending myself against some foolishness. He carried a gun. He had a shoulder holster.
Right.
He was packing. When so this incident happened one day when my dad was at a meeting. I think it was in 1967. I was about 20, 21 years old. My dad was out at a meeting and the phone rang. I was at home with my mother. The Southern drawl came on the line.
This internet tripping. He's in the middle of a good story. Come on, internet. Let me give him a chance to come back in. But P Roar, I hope I'm saying it right, but P Roar 47. We actually did this, and well, I actually saw him do this in person. That's the reason why I have him on this channel talking now, because he actually did this in person. So I'm bringing him back on now. All right. Well, all right. Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. I can see your picture. Let's make sure we can get some sound back going. But yeah, P Roar 47. This did happen in person, and him doing this in person, it was at the Foster Tanner Art Building on the campus of Florida A&M University, and it was a little bit before Black History Month, and his presentation was called Kujichagulia Mentality, the same as this, and he told a number of stories, some stories that he's even not telling here, but that's the main reason why, one of the main reasons rather, I want to have him on here, so you all can enjoy a lot of the stories and a lot of the history that he gives, because he is a stout historian, stout storyteller, and these are things that he's been bringing to our community for a long time. Apologize about the internet. This internet is acting different. It was doing good for a little bit, and then it wanted to act up. But yeah, he's telling a lot of good stories, especially when he's talking about resistance and self-determination. Like I did a video, and you should check it out, about why they don't teach us about our revolutions, why they don't teach us about the uprisings. And can you hear me, Baba? I can't hear you yet. But I did a video about why they don't teach us about the uprisings. They don't teach us about the revolts. And we don't learn that because they want us to remain docile. They don't teach us about our uprisings. They don't teach us about our history that we need to know. Because if we know our history, then that would make us, more unfit to be docile. Yes, sir. I can. Hello? Can you hear me? All right, we're gonna give him some time. But like I say, took them back out. If we really understood the amount of resistance our ancestors had throughout the African diaspora, especially the ones who were enslaved, it would literally blow your mind. Like, if you really do the research on the amount of resistance Black people had, you'll be amazed. Like, that's why I emphasize that our ancestors didn't just lay down and take it. Our ancestors always fought back. Not fighting back and then being docile is something new for African people. Take that to the bank. Being docile is some new stuff. It's not what our ancestors did. Our ancestors always fought back. So that's why, as much as possible, I'm gonna do my best to find these stories about these specific uprisings or the leaders of these uprisings, and all this little known history about these cultures all around the world, so we can get a good idea of the greatness of African people. Can you hear me, Baba? It's the government. I'm telling you, the government don't want us to finish these stores because getting it in. It's the government conspiring with this internet, messing this thing up. But please do your research on Fort Negro or the Negro Fort here in Florida. Andrew Jackson rated that as he was telling us. So do your research on that. Do your research on the Palenques. Do your research on Colombo and the different settlements that the Maroon communities had throughout the Caribbean and throughout the African diaspora. Can you hear me, Bob? Can you? Because I can see your. If you can hear me, I can see your. I can just see a picture, but I can't hear you. Yeah, the internet tripping. Come on, internet. We were doing good. He was deep into these stories. Hello? Can you hear me? I can. Right when I think I'm about to hear him, it's messing. All right, we're gonna try this. Hello. Got a little something happening. But I want to give a shout out to everybody who's tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting on the Souls of Giants. Can you hear? I can see you. Can you hear me, Baba? Yeah, this internet trip. We're gonna end up having to do a part 2 of this. Yeah. Can you?
Don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you now. Well, I could hear you for a brief spell, but it went away. I'm not sure. We may just have to do a part 2 and bring them back and try to do it different. But if COVID wasn't happening, we would have definitely been face to face doing this and not letting this internet come between us. But this dang on COVID out, and it's just not the best to be face to face right now. But this internet, we're trying to bear through it. But I do want to thank everybody for hanging in there with us and everybody who's been supporting us and listening to these wonderful stories that he's been giving. Because he had some more stories in them that he was in his groove. Hello, can you? If you were saying something, I can't hear. I can hear only a little bit. It's going in and out. Can you hear me, Baba? It's going in and out. Let me send him a message. Okay, I can hear you. I can hear you playing. All right. Every time it get to working it, but I think we're probably gonna go ahead and probably let this one wind down because we're basically gonna have to come back with a part 2 because the internet want to act funky. But I appreciate everybody for tuning in. This is what I live for. This is stuff I enjoy doing. His shoulders are shoulders that I stand on as a young historian. Even though I do like I trust my information and I know I do my research, but whenever you get a chance to be around somebody who has been studying this history for a while and who's lived it, who's seen it, and who is history himself, you gotta humble yourself and take the time to sit down and listen and learn from the masters. So, and I consider him as one of them. It's definitely been Baba Samuel Williams has definitely been a pillar in our community here in Tallahassee, Florida. And that's one of the reasons, me paying homage. Can you hear me, Baba?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. My screen just can't still.
Yeah, it's brain. It's like in and out.
Yeah, yeah. Should we try to continue?
Well, I don't know. Well, I was thinking we may have to just come back with a part two, because
Okay.
the web is kind of acting up. So I don't want to
Yeah.
keep kind of stress it or whatever. But we're gonna come back with a part two. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Cause
My screen.
see, it's taking a minute now. So but I will say this though. Shout out to everybody who support on the Shoulders of Giants. Remember, you can check out my website on theshoulders1.com. Please like this video, comment, subscribe, share it, tell a friend about On the Shoulders of Giants. This is a movement that I'm doing my best to keep going and keep going and keep going. So I want can you hear me, Baba?
I hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before it knocks you out again, can you tell at least like give your Instagram handle, how people can contact you? And if not, I'll make sure I put it all in the description if this doesn't let you do it.
Is Baba _Olusegun.
Okay. And he said Baba _Olusegun. So and I'll make sure I have all that. I do have all that information in the description of this video. So this is Kujichagulia Part 1. We gotta learn how to move on our feet. So this is Kujichagulia Mentality Part 1, the art of oral storytelling. And we definitely gonna have to come back with a part 2. I want to give a shout out to P Roar 47, Aware, Juanito, Miss Dice, Lauren. Appreciate you all, everybody who tuned in. Desiree Pearson. I want to thank everybody who tuned in and who support On the Shoulders of Giants. And like I say, sorry about the internet tripping, but we're gonna come back with a part 2. So with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Oh yeah, and next Friday I'm coming back with a young man named Delatri Hollinger, and we're gonna talk about the importance of African preservation and the preservation of our history and culture. He's the founder of an organization called the National Association for the Preservation of African American History and Culture. So he's a young man in his young 20s who knows the history, like Black history and the history of Tallahassee like the back of his hand. So that being said, I see you all next time. And just thank you for bearing with me.